I remember that morning very clearly. I was sitting on the train when I saw him. A young man sitting alone, holding a small paper in his hand. His hands were shaking, and he kept repeating the same sentence again and again. "Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity." He stopped, closed his eyes, and then tried again. "Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity." I watched him for a few seconds, and then I did something. I moved closer. "Excuse me," I said. "Are you okay?" He looked at me quickly, a little surprised. "Yes, I think so," he said. But his voice said something different. I smiled. "You don't look okay," I told him. He looked down. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he whispered, "I have a job interview today." He paused. "And my English is not good enough." I looked at him carefully, and in that moment I understood everything. I had seen that fear before, not in him, in myself. Many years ago, when I was young and English was not easy for me, he took a deep breath and continued, "This is my third interview. If I mess up again, I don't know what I will do." That was the moment. I knew I had to help him. "Do you want some help?" I asked. He looked at me again, this time with hope. "You can help me?" I smiled. "Yes," I said. "My name is Susan." I paused for a second, then added, "And today, you are not going to mess this up." He looked at me with surprise, still holding that small paper in his hand like it was the only thing keeping him calm. "You can help me?" he asked again. I smiled gently. "Yes, I can try." He nodded, but I could see doubt in his eyes. Not doubt in me, doubt in himself. "I don't think I'm ready," he said. "Every time I go to an interview, I feel the same. My mind goes blank. I forget everything." I leaned back slightly and looked at him with a calm expression. "That's because you are trying too hard to be perfect," I said. He frowned a little. "But I need to be perfect, or they won't choose me." I shook my head slowly. "No, that's not how it works." He stayed quiet. "For more than 30 years, I continued, I worked as an English teacher. I met hundreds of students just like you, smart, capable, but afraid." He looked at me differently now, more focused. "And do you know what they all had in common?" I asked. He shook his head. "They didn't trust themselves." The train moved forward, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I leaned a little closer. "Let me tell you something important," I said. "In an interview, you don't need perfect English. You need to make a strong impression." He repeated it quietly. "A strong impression." "Yes," I said. "People don't remember perfect grammar. They remember how you made them feel." He took a breath and nodded slowly. "But what if I don't understand a question?" he asked. "That's normal," I replied. "When that happens, don't panic. Just take a second to gather your thoughts and ask them to repeat." He looked at me carefully. "That's okay?" "Of course," I said. "That shows confidence." At that moment, his phone vibrated. He looked at the screen, and everything changed. His face became serious, tense. "What happened?" I asked. He hesitated for a second, then showed me the message. "Good luck today. This is your last chance." He locked his phone and looked down. "I can't do this," he said quietly. "I'm going to mess this up again." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I watched him for a moment. Then I said something very slowly. Listen to me, Michael. It was the first time I used his name. He looked up. You are not going to mess this up, I said. He didn't answer. I've seen this before, I continued. People who think they are not enough, but they are exactly what the company needs. He took a deep breath, but I could see the pressure building inside him. What if I don't sound confident? He asked. I smiled. Then you act confident, I said, even if you don't feel it yet. He looked confused. That's how confidence works, I added. Sometimes you have to come across as confident before you actually feel it. He stayed quiet, thinking about that, and for the first time since I met him, his hands stopped shaking. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The train continued moving, but inside that small space, everything felt quiet. Michael looked at his hands. This time, they were not shaking, but his eyes still carried something heavy. I've been trying for months, he said. Different interviews, different companies, and every time, it's the same. He paused. They look at me, they listen to me, and I can see it in their faces. I didn't interrupt. They don't believe in me, he said. I looked at him carefully. Or maybe you don't believe in yourself. He stayed still. That sentence stayed in the air for a moment. I studied. I practiced. I tried to improve my English, he continued. But when I'm there, in front of them, everything disappears. He looked frustrated now. I feel small, he said. That word stayed with me. Small. I nodded slowly. I understand that feeling, I told him. More than you think. He looked at me, a little surprised. There was a time in my life, I continued, when I also felt small, when I thought my voice didn't matter just because my English was not perfect. The train slowed down as we passed another station, but neither of us moved. And do you know what I learned? I asked. He shook his head. That the biggest mistake is not bad English, I said. I paused for a second. It's when you start to sell yourself short. He repeated it quietly. Sell yourself short? Yes, I said. When you believe you are less than you really are, when you hide your ideas, your personality, your value, because you are afraid of making mistakes. He looked down again. That's exactly what I do, he admitted. I leaned a little closer. Let me ask you something, Michael, I said. Why should they hire you? He froze. For a moment, he said nothing. I don't know, he finally answered. That was honest, but it was also the problem. I smiled gently. You see, that's not an English problem. He looked at me again. That's a confidence problem. The train lights moved slightly as we entered a darker section of the track. You already have something important, I continued. You showed up. You keep trying. You didn't give up after one interview or two. He listened carefully. That already says something about you, I said. He took a slow breath. But how do I show that? He asked. How do I make them see that? I smiled. You don't need to be someone else, I said. You just need to stop hiding who you already are. He stayed quiet, thinking, and in that moment, I could see something changing, not completely, but enough. The train began to slow down. Michael looked up, then at the door, and then back at me. This is my stop, he said. His voice was calmer now, but not completely. there was still something inside him, something not resolved. He stood up slowly, holding the paper in his hand, but this time, he didn't look at it. He looked at me. For a second, I thought he was ready to leave, but then he said something. What if I fail? That question was different. It was not about English. It was not about the interview. It was about fear, real fear. I stood up too. The train stopped, the doors opened, but neither of us moved. Listen carefully, Michael, I said. He looked straight into my eyes. This is important. People started walking out of the train. Others were waiting to come in. But for us, time stopped. They are not only interviewing your English, I said slowly. He didn't blink. They are meeting you. I paused. Your attitude, your energy, your story. He took a small breath. You think this interview is a test? I continued. But it's not. It's a conversation. He stayed still, listening. Do you know what makes someone stand out? I asked. He shook his head. Not perfect grammar, I said. Not perfect answers. I leaned a little closer. It's honesty. It's clarity. And most importantly, I paused. It's courage. That word hit him. I could see it in his eyes. You don't need to be perfect today, I said. You just need to show them who you are. The doors were still open, but now he was ready. He took a deep breath, not a nervous one, a different one, a calm one. He nodded. I understand, he said. And for the first time since I met him, he looked confident, not because his English was perfect, but because he finally believed in himself. Thank you, Susan, he said. I smiled. Go, I told him. This is your moment. He stepped out of the train, and I stayed there, watching him walk away, not with fear, but with purpose. For a moment, I just sat there looking through the window. The train started moving again, but my mind was still with him. I kept thinking about that young man, about his fear, and about that small moment we shared. Sometimes life gives you very short moments, but they stay with you for a long time. Days passed, and I went back to my normal routine. The same train, the same seat, the same people coming and going. But something felt different. I found myself looking around, wondering if I would see him again. And then, one morning, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. Hello? I answered. There was a short silence, and then a voice I remembered. Hi, Susan. This is Michael. I smiled immediately. Michael, I said, how are you? There was a pause, but this time it felt different, not nervous, not afraid. I got the job, he said. I closed my eyes for a second and smiled. That's wonderful, I replied. But then he added something else. Honestly, I don't even remember all my answers, he said. I made mistakes. I had to ask them to repeat questions. At one point, I even forgot a word. He laughed softly, but I didn't panic, he continued. I stayed calm. I gathered my thoughts, and I kept going. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. And something interesting happened, he said. They started smiling. The interview didn't feel like a test anymore. It felt like a real conversation. I smiled again. And at the end, he added, they told me something I will never forget. I stayed quiet, listening. They said, we like your attitude. You seem honest, and you handle pressure well. That sentence said everything. I almost sold myself short again before going in, he continued. But then I remembered what you told me. I took a deep breath. You didn't help me with English, he said. You helped me believe in myself. There was a short silence. And in that moment, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Purpose. After all these years, after teaching so many students, I realized something very simple. Sometimes people don't need more vocabulary. Sometimes they just need someone to remind them who they are. Before hanging up, I asked him one last question. Michael, what changed? He didn't answer immediately. And then he said something I will never forget. I stopped trying to be perfect, and I started being real. The call ended, and I stayed there, holding my phone, smiling. Sometimes one conversation can change everything. So let me ask you something. What would you do if fear tried to stop you today? And more importantly, what would happen if you didn't listen to it? Remember this. You don't need perfect English to change your life. You need courage, and maybe just one moment.
Language takeaway. What I love about this story is that Michael didn't become perfect. He became real, and that's exactly how language works too. Let me show you a few expressions from this story. Not like a lesson, just like a conversation between us. First, you heard Michael say, I don't want to mess this up. That's something people say all the time. It means you don't want to make a mistake, especially in an important moment. Then we had something powerful. Sell yourself short. That's when you think you are less than you really are. Not just in English, in life. Another one I really like is gather your thoughts. That's what you do when you stop for a second, organize your ideas, and then speak clearly. And this one is very important for interviews. Come across as confident. It doesn't mean you feel confident. It means you show confidence, even if you're still a little nervous inside. You also heard, handle pressure. That's how you act when things get difficult. Do you panic or do you stay calm? And finally, stand out. That's when you are different in a good way, when people remember you. Now let me ask you something. Which of these expressions do you think you can use today? Say it out loud. Don't just understand it, because English doesn't improve when you understand. It improves when you use it. What would you do in his situation? Would you feel confident or nervous? What did you learn from this story? And be honest. Have you ever felt like Michael? If this story helped you, take one step today. Speak, try, don't wait. And if you want to keep improving your English with stories like this, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.